Welcome to the Take the North podcast. I'm David Haugh from the Mully and Haugh Show on 670 The Score. Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune out at Haugh Hall. Bears-Packers week, the final podcast before the season opener. Sunday at Soldier Field, 3:25 is on Fox. Dan, a lot of talk, a lot of waiting, and I think that more than any other year that I can recall, and this is my 20th year in Chicago covering this series, that I just don't know if there's been as much uncertainty surrounding both teams as there is heading into this one.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You could call it the Uncertainty Bowl for sure and be right, because I just think there are a lot of huge questions for both the Packers and the Bears as we head into this. I'll tell you this, David, on Thursday afternoon, walking around the locker room at Haugh Hall, you feel the anticipation for this game, but you also feel amongst those of us who cover the team in eagerness to get something new on the stage, to talk about. We've been beaten every storyline to death for 8-9 months now, and it's time now. It's time now to play a game. It's time now to put a lot of the things we've talked about in theory and principle to the test and see what this actually looks like under the bright lights of the regular season. And so I cannot be more eager to walk into that stadium on Sunday afternoon and get this thing to advance a little bit.
Let's get it going with our opening drive.
It's time for the opening drive.
Lots of consternation this week, like most weeks, but maybe even more so because it is the opener. But the injury report, because of the vague descriptions of the injuries and the absences during preseason, which coaches and teams can do. But I think a couple things, Dan, I want to get your impressions of what happened this week. We have seen, number one, the Bears come out with the first official injury report on Wednesday of game week. Jaquan Brisker has a groin injury that he looks like he's going to play through. And then on Thursday, I was a bit surprised. Nate Davis missed practice because of personal reasons. I don't know what to read into that, but those are two things I thought stood out. And then you contrast that with what I felt like we were concerned here in Chicago about what the Bears were doing and who they might be without. The Packers have no receivers to throw to. So Jordan Love has a pedestrian crew of wide receivers, made worse with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson ending up on the first injury report. That changed on Thursday with Doubs practicing. How do you make sense of it all?
Well, let's start with the back end of that, because I think Christian Watson's absence from 2 practices this week with a hamstring issue, if you're up in Green Bay, you go, oh no, this guy's supposed to be our top weapon. He's supposed to be the guy that our starting quarterback can go to in big moments. And now there's the possibility that either he's not available at all, or at a minimum, he's going to be limited on Sunday. And so that's a win for the Bears, without question, that Christian Watson is still trying to fight through some things. Big news at Haugh Hall on Thursday with Eddie Jackson, DeMarcus Walker, Jaquan Brisker, all full participants in practice. Those are 3 starters that have been out for a significant amount of time in the month of August and into September. And now it looks like green light, full steam ahead, barring a setback going into the season opener. I think that defense that we've talked about for months now, with that contagious hunger and that edge and that swagger that they've been playing with. Okay, well, now we're going to get to see it at full strength on Sunday in an opener against the rivals in a 325 game, and your blood starts to get going a little bit more, because you're like, this is what we're eager to see. Are they as improved as we think they can be? And can they take a big test in the opener and make things happen? Then you flip this to the other side of the ball. And as you mentioned, Nate Davis's absence here is one of those ones that leaves you scratching your head, because we have no idea what has happened over the last 4 months. Nate Davis missed 2 weeks of organized team activities. He got hurt very early in training camp, or was sidelined very early in training camp, I should say. Ryan Poles insinuated last week that it was a quote-unquote combination of things that kept him out of the practice field. He missed 11 of 16 practices in August, David. And then you think, okay, you've cleared that hurdle. We're in week 1. He's full participant on Wednesday, and then he's out on Thursday for personal reasons, and not just out for personal reasons, but here at Haugh Hall. He was beside the practice field. He was walking down the hallway when open locker room was closing. It's the first time I can recall in my 13 years covering the league that a player missed a day of practice for personal reasons, but was in the building. And it just leaves you scratching your head. Listen, like, I'm not going to lose sensitivity here and over speculate or downplay whatever somebody's has going on off the field, but it is curious and it is mysterious and it is problematic, because this is a guy you invested a lot of money in, 3 years, $30 million in free agency, with the belief that he would be a staple to your offensive line. And now we're 2 days away from kicking off the season against the Packers, and you have no idea whether he's going to be able to play for you, and if so, for how long. And it's just lingered, like I say, for 4 months.
You did not pay a veteran offensive lineman $19 million guaranteed to be curious, mysterious, or problematic. You paid him to remove the doubt from a position that was very problematic last year at right guard. And so far, all that we have gotten as it pertains to Nate Davis is kind of more questions than answers. And I think when I talk about the uncertainty surrounding this game, it's more than just Jordan Love and Justin Fields and what are they going to give you and how much have they improved. It's all of these other things and factors that conspire to make us wonder exactly what teams are going to show up and how cohesive each group is going to be. Wanted to get your impression, because you are up there all the time, and we do spend a lot of time evaluating Justin Fields' progress on the field and his behavior off of it. We parse his language and we evaluate his body language and all those things. He was pretty stoic, and I think that's the word that might be generous and to describe his press conference demeanor. Not that you overreact to anything like that. He seemed like he might be tired of talking as well. I get that, but how would you describe Justin Fields, what he had to say in his media session on Wednesday?
So a couple things just before I move on to that. One more thing I wanted to say about Nate Davis, because on Monday, Matt Eberflus was asked about Nate Davis and said, look, like I competed against him in the AFC South for 3 seasons, played against him 5 times, and believes that the player that he saw that he had to compete against was quote unquote our kind of guy. Well, I also know that there's a premium inside this building on the hits principle and no loafing and being available and having a different mindset. And I just, I just don't know whether this offensive line in its current state is what we expected this offensive line to look like when we got to organize team activities in May. And so there is a
fair
mark there, and it is worth questioning. Is he really your kind of guy? Because I thought your kind of guy would practice a lot, and be out there and be able to contribute in those ways. As it relates to Justin, I'm not going to over exaggerate body language or read too much into what it could mean. I mean, it was definitely a low energy session from him on Wednesday. I think everybody that walked out of there was like, okay, we've seen that before out of him. It improved last year for the back end of the season significantly. Don't know what was behind it. Don't know why it was that way, but I think it was notable that it was low energy. What does it mean for Sunday's game? I don't know. But you're not wrong in pointing that out. Now the Bears have to figure out how to get energized for a football game on Sunday. I think they will. I think they can. I think they understand, in Eberflus's words, how to do 2 things at once, which is put the proper amount of significance on this rivalry and understanding what it means, while also micro-focusing and understanding that this is the next game on the schedule, and it's the game that they have to zero in on the details to be able to win. And so I think there's been a really good blend of kind of acknowledging both of those things this week. And the quarterback's going to have to be, as we've talked about before, an engine of a lot of those efforts, both with his play and the way he carries himself. And so hopefully on Sunday, we see a different version of Justin than we saw in that 10-minute session Wednesday afternoon.
We'll hear from both coordinators in a bit, Luke Getsy and Alan Williams. But first, I want to get into some of the numbers with the numbers game. All right, Dan. So I know you're armed with information, statistics, and breakdowns. To me, I just want to offer one before we get going here. 4-23 since 2010. 4-23 since the Bears basically were last really relevant in the NFC title conversation, because you could make the argument of 2018, but that was a flame out in the first round, and I don't really think anybody felt good about the double doink after the fact. Since 2010, the last time the Bears were really any good, the Bears have not made this a rivalry at all. A rivalry implies there's contested battle from both sides. I don't know what Webster's definition is, but it ain't 4-23.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably sit here and quickly run down the number of Bears victories over the Packers that I've covered. And we'd be done in 3 minutes. It's Thanksgiving Day in the first season of John Fox when Alshon Jeffrey was shouting, "Where's the turkey? Where's the turkey?" in the locker room. That was a good moment that our buddy Zach Zaidman still has. I think he still has the audio from that. You've got the division clincher at Soldier Field in 2018 with the Khalil Mack back sack which will fold right into my numbers here in a minute. But yeah, it's lopsided, and it's got to get unlopsided pretty soon. When we give our predictions later, I'll kind of give you some of what I think about the magnitude of this particular game as it's the new era of this rivalry without Aaron Rodgers. But they got to get things flipped as soon as possible, because you cannot talk about winning division titles and then be beaten soundly twice a year by your rival.
What other numbers tell a story?
Yeah, well, as you know, every Thursday at ChicagoTribune.com, I offer a dozen numbers, and then we sample a couple of them here, and then encourage people to see the rest at ChicagoTribune.com. I'm going to start you here with 2,492. That's the yards from scrimmage a year ago from Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. 406 of those came in the 2 wins over the Bears. I think you can safely say that Matt LaFleur and his staff are going to put together a game plan for Sunday that challenges Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon to challenge the Bears and to put the ball in their hands and put the ball in their bellies and see what they can do with it and see if the Bears can stop them and tackle them. Those guys were very productive a year ago. They were specifically very productive in the 2 games against the Bears, and you got to find a way to slow that down to then hopefully challenge Jordan Love to beat you however he needs to.
378 would be the other number I would add underneath that one, because that's the number of rushing yards in 2 games last year against the Bears the Packers had. If you can't stop the run, it's not going to matter how good or bad Jordan Love is. He can be a game manager, and if they grind out another 190 yards, which is what they averaged last year against the Bears on the ground roughly, it's going to be a moot point, and you're not going to be able to get off the field if you're a defense.
No question about it. Second number is 94.6. That is the rushing yards per game average of Justin Fields in his last 10 starts a year ago. We understand what he became in this league with his ability to show off that explosion, that speed, to test defenses with that. That included 3 games of 100 plus. It included 3 touchdown runs of 50 plus, including one against these very Packers at Soldier Field when he broke free right up the middle and took it to the house. That is something that we're going to have our eyes on, is how much is Justin rushing? How often can he produce those game-breaking explosions with his legs? How often do the Bears want him producing those? It'll be all up to the test on Sunday afternoon, and I think we still understand that is a weapon that the Bears have in their offensive arsenal that very few defenses can match. It just depends on how selective you want to be with using it.
Just quickly, what would you recommend? You're talking to Luke Getsy over a beer, and it comes up, okay, that number is interesting. Justin Fields is a special runner. You want him to be a polished passer. He's got to do that to take the next step, yada, yada, yada. But if you are talking to Luke Getsy about Justin Fields' run-pass ratio or his best advice when he needs to get the big play or the tough yard, what are you saying to Luke Getsy?
Well, look, I mean, I think you're going to see a handful of designed runs, obviously 3, 4, maybe 5. And then you just ask him to be situationally smart, to be instinctive, to understand that is a talent that he has that very few people can match. And so now it's all about what we've talked about all offseason. It's don't, feel the urge to tuck and run so often when there are other options available to you. If it's 3rd and 8 and nothing's open, go. Take off, move the chains, get us another set of downs, and let's regroup. If it's 1st and 10 and you've got a check down option available to you over here in the flat, drop it off to him. If it only gets 3 yards, fine. It'll be 2nd and 7, and we'll move on from there. So that's the balancing act, and I think we'll probably get a sample size over the first 4 or 5 games of the season that show us kind of how they've recalibrated things and where Justin's at. So that would I think they've got a good handle on this inside the building. I think Justin's got a good handle on what they're instructing him to do. Now it's all about what does it look like, when the games start, because all of a sudden all the game planning and the talking and the hopes they give way to the instincts and what the situation presents, and it'll be interesting to see how Justin handles all that.
I might go full pet Matt Nagy on him and okay, just be you, be yourself, because I do think that there's been so much focus, and we're probably part of that process, but so much focus on him developing as a passer and the accuracy in time, on time, all those things that I have to tell you, if the Bears are in a close game or if they're protecting a lead or coming from behind in the 4th quarter and they got a drive that means something, I think I don't want him to force the ball down the field just to prove a point. I want him to move the ball down the field however he sees fit. I go back and forth on this, and I think about it a lot when it comes to Justin Fields and what I think of him and his future. I just wondered, I think I need to go back and look or talk to some people who would know. Forget about the Jalen Hurts jump, which everybody talks about. I want to know, what did they tell Lamar Jackson when he was making his ascension and when he was being himself? Because I wonder if anybody ever told Lamar Jackson, don't run, don't do this.
Well, but you
Or-
also have to remember that when Lamar Jackson won MVP, he threw for over 3,000 yards
Yeah.
and I think it was like 38, 39 touchdowns that season. And so that he
Fair
was
enough.
he was doing both, you know, and
Doing both.
I think the Bears hope that they get to a point where they can do both productively and that their quarterback can be a weapon both ways. We've talked about this before. There's just a long-term sustainability, durability question that comes with this, and they've just got to figure out the right balance for that.
All right, let's stop my mind from drifting. Let's get back to the numbers game. What's your next number?
All right, I got two more for you. 3.
right.
That's the number of players on this roster who were here on this roster the last time the Bears beat the Packers in that famous 2018 division clinching game. I'll give you 10 seconds to name all 3 if you can off the top of your head.
Eddie Jackson, Patrick Scales, and Cairo Santos.
Cody Whitehair.
Oh,
Eddie Jackson, Patrick Scales, Cody Whitehair.
How could I forget? How could I forget Santos? He wasn't here yet. Double Doinker was still there.
Correct. Yes. And don't forget that Eddie Jackson helped seal that win in 2018 with an interception in the end zone against Aaron Rodgers. And then, lo and behold, he got hurt on the return and missed the playoff game against the Eagles. And it
went
was
about
devastating.
2 years between interceptions. But that's another story.
So that number leads us right into the next number, which is 26. And that's the number of players that are on the Bears' current 53-man roster that have been added to the 53-man roster since last season ended. So a lot of new faces here. 26 out of 53. Rough math tells you that's almost half, not quite half. I know you're good at that advanced 8th grade division there, and you understand it's 50%. That includes 8 week 1 starters, hopeful week 1 starters. That's DJ Moore, Darnell Wright. It's hopefully Nate Davis. It's Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Yannick Ngakoue, DeMarcus Walker, and Andrew Billings. So you've got 8 fresh faces going to the starting gate for you on Sunday. 26 on the roster in total. These are the new look Bears, David, and they're about to go into a rivalry that needs a new look because, as you mentioned, it's been all too lopsided over the last 12, 13 years and probably longer than that.
Great numbers. Now let's take a closer look with our predictions. All right, before we get to what's going to happen Sunday at Soldier Field with our predictions, let's address some of the things that were said at Haugh. We want to hear from both coordinators, and then I want to add a nugget from the Mully and Haugh show that I think is worth sharing with the audience. Luke Getsy was talking, Dan, about, and you were there, about the guy that I think we both agree could be the most valuable, most dependable member of the Bears receiving corps and maybe the Bears offense in general, DJ Moore. DJ Moore is a guy that when you look around the league, and Mully and I did this exercise on Thursday morning, we tried to rank where DJ Moore is in the pantheon of best receivers in the National Football League. I had him 11th, and I think partly because of his dependability. Maybe that's a little bit high for some people. Mully had him 14th. I think he's a top 15 receiver, and I think that's a huge upgrade. And it's been a while since the Bears have had somebody. Allen Robinson was dependable. Alshon Jeffrey was explosive. DJ Moore is kind of both, and I think he gives you the opportunity to get some yards after the catch. But DJ Moore has done everything to live up to the billing so far before the first game. Yeah,
so I asked Luke on Thursday morning just kind of about in his role as the offensive architect and overseer and the guy who calls the plays, what is DJ's presence just on a broad scale? What does it mean to Luke Getsy? And he said that obviously there's a comfort level there with the quarterback and Justin Fields, and that for him, that provides a little bit more freedom for, he called it the creativity / comfort plays that you can lean on when you need to. And so, look, I think there's a confidence that DJ brings to the entire group that is notable. There's a reason he was voted a captain as a newcomer, despite not being a guy who is outwardly vocal or a guy who says a lot. Guys respect the way he practices, the way he goes about his business, and the way he produces. I always tell that, you can tell the production respect that's there. Colleen Kane followed up a few minutes later and asked Luke in his experience what he sees in DJ about what makes DJ Moore tick. Here was his answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's when you're on the field and you see him go, I mean, there is a, use the word dog in him. I mean, that guy's a competitive animal. I mean, he's quiet, but he plays as hard and he practices hard, and he's a great teammate. He holds himself accountable. When he makes a mistake, he's the first person to go into that huddle and say, "That's my bad. I was wrong." I think all that stuff, it just stands out for the kind of man that he is.
It's good stuff. I think that DJ Moore is looking at a season where, Again, you never can predict injuries. You never can affect who's going to be or predict who's going to be throwing him the ball. 80 catches between 1,000 and 1,200 yards, over 10 touchdowns. I think most people would take that as a productive member of the passing game with the Bears and the receiving core. Because with this Bears team, if he has those numbers, it means a lot has gone well.
Well, one other thing I'll emphasize that Luke said also on Thursday was DJ hasn't missed a practice. OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason. The guy's been on the practice field every single day. And we talk about the worries about other guys on this roster that you don't know whether they're in or whether they're out. And when they're in, are they going to last and whatever else it is. DJ Moore's there every day. And not only does that give you the dependability and an ability to put your head down on the pillow and rest at night, it gives you reps with your quarterback. And we've talked forever about Justin needing to develop rapport with so many different guys. It's there with DJ. They go into the regular season full steam ahead.
Let's go to the other side of the ball. Alan Williams, who I like to hear talk because I just think he says things in a very distinctive way, and I like the way that he talks about football. And I feel like he'd be a guy that would be fun to play for just because of that and his commitment level. But let's face it, there's not a lot out there on Jordan Love in terms of tape. And so how do you prepare for a guy that you don't know a lot about, Dan? And the conversation went on from there.
Well, yeah. So before we play Alan, I'll say two things. Like, obviously, the discussion inside this building this week is what do you do when you don't have a lot to go on? How much do you study Jordan Love from his college days? How much do you try to forecast and predict how the Packers are going to use him? And how much, in Alan Williams's words, is like, make sure you don't go hunting ghosts and say, oh, they might do this, so let's spend a whole bunch of preparation time on this. The Bears still kind of are leaning on the mindset of, hey, we're going to do what we do best. We're going to lean on it. We're going to make sure we use everything that we've worked on through the spring and summer and take it to the regular season and hope that produces success. But he was also kind of asked, did the Packers hide a bunch of stuff in the preseason when Jordan Love played because they want to bring the element of surprise, and because there is such a guessing game involved? Like, how do you respond as a defensive coach, knowing that you're walking into this world that you don't really know what's going to happen on Sunday? Here's what he had to say about that.
Back to what you were saying about Jordan Love, and then ultimately it's more about you guys and what you do against him. But is it difficult though, because of all the advanced scouting that goes on, the trying to get an edge on a team, the secrecy that exists, to not have as much information on a quarterback?
Yeah. No. No. Sometimes we make this game a little bit more difficult than it should be. It's still about winning your one-on-one matchups. It's still about they have one football. They don't have three. So we have to find the football. We know where it is. It's still about tackling, lining up, reading your keys, getting to the ball, and all the other things. Those are distractions. That's window dressing. All the other things that come into effect, and all the other things about, hey, the stats say this and the analytics say this and whatever. I've never heard of a game that was won through analytics. Now, with the technology and all the things that we have and all the information that we have, sometimes they make guys play slower, not faster. So we want to, again, I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but if we get lined up, see the formation, read our keys, play fast, run and tackle, we'll be fine.
Sometimes we make this game a little more difficult than we should, I believe were the first words of Alan Williams there. This one struck me on a couple levels. I thought it was a pretty good answer in terms of how they're going to play defense on Sunday. I also think it's almost ironic here where we have a head coach who conceals injury information for 4.5 months until the first official injury report has to come out because he thinks it provides a competitive advantage. Special teams coordinator Richard Hightower today bristled at a question that I asked directly on who was going to take kick returning duties on Sunday and said, "Oh, good try," acting like I was trying to play some gotcha question at him. I just want to know who's going to return the kickoff on Sunday if the Bears get the ball. He didn't want to give that information out, despite the Bears already proclaiming Trent Taylor their undisputed punt returner. That clearly wasn't too much to offer the Packers. So anyway, that's my little side aside. But I appreciated Alan Williams saying sometimes we make this a little more difficult than it should be.
and he's talking about a lot of different things and analytics and all the things the computer spits out, but he also could be talking about the ridiculous subterfuge that the coaches engage in to try to obfuscate. A lot of big words there, but it all comes down to the silliness that exists in the NFL on every level,
Yeah.
concealing injuries, trying to protect depth charts, all those things that really don't matter. Alan Williams is somebody that would give Bears players who might feel like rookies, or rookies trying to fit in and maybe veterans trying to hang on, hope that if you just take it one play at a time, the old cliche, and win that battle, you have a chance to play, you have a chance to stay, and you have a chance to succeed, because it's all about those one-on-one matchups. So I like hearing him talk football because he does go a little bit old school. I don't know if it's going to matter in stopping Jordan Love or the receiving core, or frankly the running game, which is priority number one, but I do think they have the right approach, and I applaud it.
No question. And now let's go play that chess game against the Packers, and
Right.
let's see what it looks like on Sunday evening. We'll have our first post-game pod, and we'll see if we are singing the praises of Alan Williams there like we are right now.
The last bit of sound I want to hear and let the audience in on came from Dan Pompei from The Athletic, who had a terrific story. If you go to theathletic.com and go to the Bears page, Dan talked to some anonymous scouts who gave their perception of the Bears based on just knowing the league and also knowing knowing the Bears from having watched them on tape, about Justin Fields, about many other things. And then I asked Dan about, on the Mully and Haugh show on 670 The Score, what he thought about Justin Fields.
Expect him to be more productive, if for no other reason than he's got better weapons around him, and potentially he's got better pass protection, offensive linemen, although that remains to be seen, I think. But DJ Moore is going to help him without a doubt. A healthy Darnell Mooney is going to help him. Claypool can help him. Even Robert Tonyan can help him. I mean, he's set up for success in a lot of ways that he wasn't last year. The fact that it's his second year in this system is going to help him. The fact that Luke Getsy knows what he's got with him now is going to help him. The fact that he's a more mature player, all of it's going to help him. So I would expect improvement. The thing that I can't tell you is how much improvement. I don't think anybody really knows what he's capable of. I mean, the things that we really want to see him do better, we want to see him protect the football better, both when it's in his hands and when he lets it go. We want to see him anticipate and throw with timing better. We want to see his accuracy improve. And, some of those things, obviously, they're on him. So that's going to be the interesting part of the growth of Justin Fields.
Great stuff from Dan Pompei, been around the league for a long time, not going to get swept away with enthusiasm, and even pointed out the disparity between fans' perception and maybe some media perception of the Bears season to come and the reality when he talks to people around the league.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about that exercise he does annually is it's a cross section, and it's not just one guy. You get differing opinions on the same topic in certain cases, and it tells you where there is some gray area with some thoughts around the league. But it's a pretty thorough overview of where this team is and how it's viewed. And now we will get to watch it with our own eyes unfold for the next 18 weeks.
Speaking of Bears fans, let's bring him Adam Studzinski Studs, our producer. It's time to make our predictions. And for Sunday's game, with the score, with the winning team, with the reasons why, we'll start with Adam. Adam, I'm going to be shocked by this prediction. I don't think I'll be shocked at all by this prediction.
Well, all right. So I think that maybe by now you guys have figured out, if you really listen to my predictions, the Packers are the only team that I really see red with, and I just can't shake any form of the fandom that I view that I have on game days. So I ended up picking the Bears on the Scores website. I'm going to pick the Bears here too. And I did so I'm going to read exactly what I put on the Scores website, because this is how it's very specific, and it's how I feel about this game. Number 1, Fields does something awesome. Number 2, DJ Moore scores his first touchdown for the Bears after beating Jair Alexander on a double move. I know that's very specific, but and then number 3, Eddie Jackson picks off Jordan Love late in the fourth quarter to secure the win, not too dissimilar from what happened in 2018. Bears win 24-20.
24-20. I like the little symmetry there too, Studs, with the Eddie Jackson interception, just like he did, as Dan referenced earlier in the program.
Studs has a very vivid crystal ball. He sees not only the score, but all the plays that are unfolding that lead the Bears down that path. The fitting part about this is he has the exact same score that I have. Bears 24, Packers 20. Stunner. David Haugh's eyes are bulging out of his head here. I know I told you on Wednesday morning on 670 The Score that I wasn't ready to make my prediction. I know your producer, Dustin Rhodes, bristled at the idea that I couldn't put
that was a
myself on
gutsy
that
move, Dan. You said a lot of gutsy things on the radio the past couple of years. There was nothing gutsier than saying I'm not ready to make a prediction with Dustin on the other line.
It was not. It was apparently not in my best interest. But then I got there, and I got there 24-20. I think that the Bears are at home in the Uncertainty Bowl. I think they have an undeniable level of belief. I think the Packers have enough question marks, particularly as we talked about from the outset, not only with Jordan Love, but who is he going to be throwing to with the injuries they have. Look, like they have more talent on offense and defense this year, and I think that should supply them with the ability to win some of these quote unquote take care of business games, and this one sets up as that. And David, Adam, I think that this has the potential in this rivalry to be a ding dong, the witch is dead kind of moment for the Bears with Aaron Rodgers off in New York, and an upset at home would just give you that feeling on like, oh my God, I know it's one game to start a season, but that nightmare of getting tormented twice annually by that one dude,
it's over.
He's gone. It's gone.
I think Monday could be a fun day in Chicago.
And really quick, David, sorry, I just want to say, because that triggered something in my memory, Dan. That's how I felt after they beat the Packers in 2018. I was like, all right, we're past this. But then,
but 12 was still there. He was still there.
Rodgers was still there.
But he, at the time, I thought he was on the downtrend, and then he won back-to-back MVPs. Anyway, sorry, David, your prediction.
The Bears will win 27-23. They're going to win because they need this game more than the Packers need this game as a franchise, as a city, as a fan base. Justin Fields will be the best quarterback on the field at Soldier Field because he has to be the best quarterback on the field. There's really no choice for the Bears, and there's really no there's no scenario you want to consider if that's not the case. It's like you can't really anticipate, or you don't want to hypothesize any other outcome, because we have been there so often in Chicago where the Packers have the edge at the quarterback position, and it came down to a couple throws, and the Packers quarterback made those throws. Stop. Enough already. I do think also the one thing that we haven't really talked about that will come come through in a big way on Sunday will be special teams in the kicking game. The Packers are brand new. And when you're brand new at anything on the road in an environment, it's not going to be conducive to comfort. And also a new mechanism in place early in the season. We talk about the uncertainty surrounding the quarterback and a lot of other things. The kicking game for the Packers is everything. Is everything about uncertainty. So I think that no Mason Crosby, no Patrick O'Donnell, no certainty there. The Bears have a better kicking game and special teams perhaps, and those little things will make a big difference, and the Bears win 27-23.
So we all have the Bears winning by 4 for those who like to look at some other things in regards to this, and we all have the score at least 43 or above, if I'm not mistaken, for those who like to look at other ends of
the over
entertainment.
The over, Dan. You can say it. Come on.
Bears in the over. It's
Bears
unanimous.
In the over.
Take the North.
All right, great stuff. Thank you, Studs. Let's get into our 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
Dan, this is going to be a lot of fun on Sunday. Looking forward to being back in the press box at Soldier Field. A lot of things that come flooding back when you're talking about covering another season. This is my 20th year covering the Bears. It's hard to believe that the first game I covered at Soldier Field, in the renovated Soldier Field, Cordell Stewart was the quarterback, and he was playing against Aaron Rodgers when they played the Packers that year. It's been a long time. Looking forward to it. But I wanted to, before you get your thoughts on that real quickly, because we only have 2 minutes. We began this pod after the season finished last year, anticipating the most significant offseason in Bears history for a lot of different reasons. Do you think that it lived up to the hype?
I don't know yet. There's got to be a return on investment on all these things that happened, all these free agent signings they made, all the draft picks they accumulated, what DJ Moore does, coming over via trade. I think time will tell. I think from the outset, you and I were more measured in saying, look, like, you're not going to bat 750. You're not going to have landmark things happen at every turn of a landmark offseason. I think they're better. I think they're a better football team, undeniably. I think they're making strides in the right direction. But if you can't create success and sustain it, then it's just another chapter in the we tried department here, which is all too prevalent.
So let me quickly rephrase the question. If the Bears beat the Packers and we reconvene Sunday night, will Monday feel like the Bears did just complete the most significant offseason in their history?
It will feel like that, but my answer will be I don't know yet, and I'll be doing that whole thing that the city doesn't want me to do, which is I'll take it whether they win or they lose.
Yeah,
I guarantee you on Monday I'm going to say, okay, let's take a deep breath now. There's still 16 more games to play, 17 more weeks, and we've got to see how this stuff carries over. But I think at the very least, you have an opportunity here, and I think that's as significant as anything. I've said for a while that I think both teams would have benefited from playing a game that wasn't bright lights, big stage like this rivalry is, but I also think it presents a window of opportunity for momentum for the victor to say, hell yeah, we got that done in week 1, and now it gives us a little bit of that juice to carry forward into week 2, and then on you march.
Good time management on this one. Anything we left out, Dan, before we go?
The last thing, that you mentioned it a little bit ago, the special teams is often a deciding factor early in the season. The Packers have a punter and a kicker who have never played in an NFL game before. The kicker, Anders Carlson, a 6th-round pick, I believe, out of Auburn, missed 3 extra points in the preseason. And Daniel Whalen was the guy who beat Pat O'Donnell out for the job after being brought into Green Bay after a stint with the DC Defenders of the XFL. So the XFL pipeline is alive and well in Green Bay, and it may give the Bears an opportunity to get something. But at the same time, they have an all-pro kick returner in Keyshawn Nixon, so don't get too hyped up on the special teams advantage for the Bears.
Can't wait for that, and we will be back here Sunday night after the game with a quick reaction to what happened, and then again next week back on schedule here on the Take the North podcast on your free Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcast, and on you can watch us on the YouTube page for 670 The Score. All right, it's game week. It's kickoff. We can't wait till Sunday. For Adam Szynski, our producer, for Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune, you can find his stuff on chicagotribune.com. He's had a heck of a week. You want to check that out. I'm David Haugh for the Mully and Haugh Show from 670 The Score. We'll talk to you Sunday night.
Great talk. See you out there.